Welcome back, everybody. So today's video is about the structure and function of the cardio-respiratory system. Now, I've actually put up a PowerPoint on the Canvas site that is going to help you with your revision of the level 2 information about the heart that you're going to need. So I'm not going to go through all of that stuff again. We're just going to build on some of our learning from last year. So if you can ensure that you've read through your level 2 notes, had a look at your manuals, or looked at the PowerPoint to refresh yourself, that would be great. Okay, let's get started. So the things that we need to know at level 3 about the cardiorespiratory system is to be able to describe the coronary circulation, to describe the effects of the disease processes on the structure and function of blood vessels. If you remember, we're going to be thinking about arteries predominantly here, even though you also know about veins and about capillaries. Then we're going to move on to another video actually where we're going to be looking at blood pressure. So that one we're going to be looking at blood pressure classifications and associated risks. We're going to be looking at some of the terminology that you need to know, including the cardiac cycle, stroke volume, and cardiac output. And we're going to be identifying the short and long-term effects of exercise on the cardiorespiratory system. So this video is just for the first couple of those learning outcomes. So here's a picture of the heart you're probably familiar with, just to remind us about the two sides of the heart, the right and the left, both divided into atrium and ventricles, how the right side of the heart receives deoxygenated blood and the left side is oxygenated blood. So it's a double circulatory system where the blood goes through the heart twice. Once the deoxygenated blood goes through the heart, then it's pumped to the lungs to be reoxygenated, and then it's pumped through the heart again to be delivered out to the body. I said we weren't going to revise, and there we go. We've just done a bit of revision. So why not? Let's just jump in. Just to look on from the left-hand side, we've got our biggest vein in the body, our vena cava, which is going to receive blood from the upper and lower part of our bodies, our deoxygenated blood, feed into the right atrium. It's going to go through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle, up through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, back in via the pulmonary veins into the left atrium, down through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle. Then it's going to be pumped out into the aorta to be distributed around the body. There we go. Brief recap. So here's another image of our entire circulatory system, looking at the heart in the middle and then how it connects with our lungs, which have sort of been separated for the case of this image via our pulmonary arteries. And remember that the pulmonary artery is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood. All the other arteries carry oxygenated blood, and the pulmonary vein is the only one that carries, only vein to carry oxygenated blood. The rest always carry deoxygenated blood. But I think what's handy in this picture is you can see these capillary beds, these sort of mesh network of capillaries, remember, that are really thin, which is where exchange of gases and materials occur. So that just gives you a little reminder of how the entire circulatory system fits together. So I mentioned a couple of valves there. Between the atria and the ventricles, we've got these valves on the right-hand side that's called your tricuspid because it's got 3 cusps, and the other side is called a mitral valve or the bicuspid valve because it's got 2. So we always remember that you need to try before you buy. Tricuspid on the right, bicuspid on the left. Another way to remember is that tri has got an R in for the right side of the heart, whereas the bicuspid doesn't. It doesn't work so well if you use a mitral valve, but there we are. The other two to look at are our pulmonary valves, pulmonary and aortic valves, which are also called our semilunar valves, and they occur in our pulmonary artery and in our aorta, and these prevent backflow into the ventricles. So let's get on to that first learning outcome, which was to learn about the coronary circulation. Now, coronary circulation is part of the systemic circulatory system. So systemic is the part that goes around the body that supplies oxygenated blood to the heart muscle itself. And another word for heart muscle is myocardium. So the coronary arteries are the ones that are wrapped around the heart and provides the muscle of the heart with its own blood supply, which it needs to be able to function and contract. So really important because our heart muscle is constantly working. And if you remember, it's an involuntary muscle and it's striated. So let's have a little look at our coronary arteries. So on our right-hand side, the coronary artery, to remember, is very simply called the right coronary artery, and this supplies the right atrium and ventricle with oxygenated blood. So that's just the right coronary artery. And then moving over to the left, you've got two main parts to remember. So you've got the left anterior descending and the left circumflex artery. So three in total: right coronary, left anterior descending, and the circumflex. Just go back to that one for a minute. So the circumflex will supply the posterior part of the left atrium and ventricle, and the left anterior descending supplies the anterior part of the left atrium and ventricle. So there we have it. Those are our coronary arteries. So the next thing we needed to look at was the effect of disease processes on the structure and function of blood vessels. So some words you'll have come across before: arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis. Now, arteriosclerosis is any hardening of the artery walls that can actually occur due to disease processes. And I try and remember arterio because it just sounds, well, I don't know, to me it sounds like a harder arterio is like a hard word, whereas atherosclerosis is the one where we're looking at fatty deposits, and somehow it just seems a bit more of a slippery, slimy word, athero. So the process of arteriosclerosis, that hardening, can happen through atherosclerosis. Now, this is a condition that affects the arteries, where there are fatty deposits laid down on the walls of the arteries called atheromas. So you get some damage to the walls of the arteries. This causes them to become rough, and then fatty deposits start to accumulate around that rough area of tissue on the walls, and then you get calcium laid down around these fatty deposits, which contributes to the arteriosclerosis. And then you continue to get these plaque buildup. And if you can imagine a pipe where you've got buildup of material on the inside of the pipe, you can see how that would narrow the arteries. Now, when arteries don't get enough blood to meet their needs, you get pain. And so therefore, when we exercise, you need there are greater demands of oxygen on the body. And so what happens is we're more likely to get pain on exercise if we've got blood vessel damage or we've got arterial atherosclerosis occurring, because we can't get enough blood through. And then the muscles respond with pain because they're not getting the oxygen that they need. So that is arteriosclerosis, the hardening, the process of atherosclerosis, the building up of these fatty deposits on the walls of the artery. You might remember, if you've done a nutrition element here, that our LDLs, our low density plasma lipoproteins, are the bad ones, and they're the ones that often cause these atheromatous plaques on our arteries. Obviously, if you get complete blockage of an artery, that's when you can end up getting a heart attack. So let's have a little look at that atherosclerosis, the different stages. So you can see at the top, you've got a healthy artery, and then moving over to the right, there's a beginning of the plaque formation. So it's just starting to narrow. Moving on to the process builds up. As a plaque is there, it attracts more material. You also get the calcium build up there. And then you get the narrowed artery can get blocked by a blood clot because that blood can't move through that occluded space. So when coronary arteries are affected by atherosclerosis, this is known as coronary heart disease. So I've gone to the wrong one. Sorry, go back there. So you can see here the image is taken from one of the coronary arteries, this blockage that's occurring, and this can result in pain called angina and can cause a heart attack where some of the heart tissue dies because it can't get the oxygen and the blood supply that it needs. So that's coronary heart disease that occurs in those coronary arteries we've been discussing. So there's now a quiz which I will leave you to go through in your own time. So there's a number of questions that I've taken from past papers. So if you'll work your way through those, then I believe I've also put the answers, but I won't put those up now. So if you work your way through those quiz questions, and then you can look and see how you've done on the answers. So that video just covered our coronary circulation. So we know about the right coronary artery, the left circumflex, and the left anterior descending artery. And this is part of our systemic circulation that supplies oxygenated blood to and provides drainage from the tissues in the heart. And we've looked at the disease processes of arteriosclerosis, the hardening, and atherosclerosis, the building up of those fatty plaques. Well done. Please join me again for blood pressure shortly. Thank you. Goodbye.